The haunting of Ravenwood Manor, in the secluded town of Eldridge, nestled deep within the woods, stood the abandoned Ravenwood Manor. Locals whispered of its dark past, claiming it was cursed. No one dared to venture near, especially after sunset. One crisp autumn evening, a group of 4 friends, Sarah, Mark, Emily, and Jason, decided to explore the manor, seeking thrills and proof to debunk the local legends. Armed with flashlights and a sense of adventure, they approached the decaying mansion as the sun dipped below the horizon. The front door creaked open, revealing a grand but dust-covered foyer. Their footsteps echoed as they moved deeper inside, observing the remnants of a once opulent home. Portraits of the Ravenwood family lined the walls, their eyes seemingly following the intruders. As they ascended the grand staircase, a sudden chill filled the air. Sarah shivered, feeling an inexplicable sense of dread. "Maybe we should leave," she whispered, but the others dismissed her concerns, eager to continue their exploration. Reaching the second floor, they discovered a locked door at the end of the hallway. Jason, determined to impress, forced it open, revealing a child's bedroom frozen in time. A delicate music box sat on the dresser. Emily couldn't resist and wound it up. A haunting melody filled the room, and as it played, the temperature plummeted. Suddenly, the door slammed shut. The friends' flashlights flickered, and an oppressive darkness enveloped them. Panic set in as they struggled to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. Whispers filled the room, growing louder, more insistent. Mark shouted, "Who's there?" but received no response. Only a chilling laugh that echoed around them. The shadows seemed to move, creeping closer, suffocating them with fear. In the dim light, Sarah noticed the portrait of a young girl on the wall, her eyes now glowing with an eerie light. "We need to apologize," she cried out. "We've disturbed her room." Desperate, they all voiced their apologies, pleading for forgiveness. The whispers ceased, and the door creaked open. Without hesitation, they fled the manor, vowing never to return. Back in town, they researched the history of Ravenwood Manor and discovered that the young girl, Eliza Ravenwood, had died tragically in that very room over a century ago. Her spirit, it seemed, still lingered, guarding her sanctuary from intruders. The friends never spoke of that night again, but they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, especially when alone. The haunting melody of the music box occasionally drifted through their dreams, a chilling reminder of the night they disturbed the restless spirit of Ravenwood Manor. Weeks passed, but the eerie experience at Ravenwood Manor clung to the group like a shadow. Sarah, who had been the most hesitant to enter, was the first to notice something was wrong. At night, she heard faint whispers coming from her closet. The whispers weren't words, but sounded like someone humming the same haunting melody from the music box. At first, she convinced herself it was just her imagination. But one night, the whispers grew louder, and her bedroom door creaked open on its own. Terrified, she called Mark. "Mark, something's happening. I can't explain it, but it feels like something followed us home," Sarah said, her voice trembling. Mark tried to reassure her. "It's probably just nerves. That night freaked us all out. But if it'll make you feel better, I'll come over." When Mark arrived, he noticed the strange chill in Sarah's room. As they talked, her bedroom mirror fogged up as though someone were breathing on it. Then a single word appeared, written in the condensation: "Sorry." Mark and Sarah stared at the mirror in horror. "We need to tell the others," Mark said. Meanwhile, Emily and Jason were experiencing their own nightmares. Emily found the music box on her bedside table one morning, even though she was sure she had left it at the manor. She tried to throw it away, but it reappeared in her room the next day. Jason's nights were filled with vivid dreams of the little girl from the portrait. In his dreams, she stood at the foot of his bed, her eyes hollow and her mouth stitched shut. She would point to something behind him, but every time he turned, he woke up in a cold sweat before seeing what it was. When the group finally met to discuss what was happening, they all shared their experiences. "It's like she's trying to tell us something," Sarah said. "Maybe we didn't just disturb her. We took something, or she wants something from us." Mark looked at Emily. "The music box. You took it, didn't you?" Emily nodded, ashamed. "I didn't mean to. I thought it was harmless, but it won't let me get rid of it." The group decided they had to return to Ravenwood Manor and put the music box back. They waited until dusk, knowing the spirits seemed most active at night. As they approached the manor, the air grew colder, and the whispers started again. Inside, the house seemed even more decayed than before. The walls were covered in claw marks, and the portraits had all turned to face the door, as if watching their every move. When they reached the little girl's room, the door opened by itself. The music box sat on the dresser, though Emily swore she had brought it with her. The group hesitated, but Emily stepped forward and placed her music box next to the one on the dresser. Suddenly, the door slammed shut, and the music box began playing on its own. The melody was distorted, almost like a cry for help. The shadows in the room grew, forming the shape of a young girl. "You shouldn't have come back," the shadow whispered, her voice echoing in their minds. "What do you want from us?" Sarah cried. The girl pointed to the music box, then to the corner of the room. In the dim light, they saw a hidden trap door. Jason hesitated but pried it open. Inside was a small skeleton, clutching a diary. Emily read the diary aloud. It told the tragic story of Eliza, locked in her room by her cruel parents. She had died of starvation, and her spirit had remained trapped, seeking justice. The group knew what they had to do. They took Eliza's remains and buried them in the churchyard, offering prayers for her peace. As they did, the oppressive feeling lifted, and the whispers ceased. Though they had freed Eliza, the group couldn't shake the feeling that Ravenwood Manor wasn't done with them. After all, the house had witnessed countless tragedies, and Eliza's was just one of many. After burying Eliza's remains, the group thought they were finally free from the curse of Ravenwood Manor. But their relief was short-lived. A week later, strange events began happening again. This time, far worse than before. Sarah woke up one night to find her bedroom window wide open. A bitterly cold wind swept through, carrying with it the faint sound of children crying. When she approached the window to close it, she saw something etched into the frost on the glass. "You're not finished." The next morning, she called the group together. Mark, Emily, and Jason all looked as though they hadn't slept in days. Mark revealed he had been hearing heavy footsteps in his attic at night, even though his house didn't have an attic. Emily confessed she kept finding muddy footprints in her hallway, leading from the front door to her bedroom. Jason, however, had the most disturbing story. "I saw her again," he said, his voice shaking. "In my dream, Eliza was standing in a forest. She wasn't alone this time. There were others, figures, shadows, staring at me. They kept saying the same thing over and over. 'Help us.'" Realizing Eliza wasn't the only spirit tied to Ravenwood Manor, the group decided to investigate further. They returned to the library in town and searched for any records about the manor's history. What they discovered was horrifying. The manor had been a site of unspeakable atrocities. The Ravenwood family, known for their wealth and influence, had used the house as a front for their twisted activities. Over the years, countless servants, orphans, and even neighbors had vanished. their disappearances never explained. The townspeople had long suspected the Ravenwoods, but no one dared confront them. One article mentioned a fire that had partially destroyed the manor decades ago. It was believed to have been set by a servant who discovered the truth about the family's dark secrets. However, no bodies were ever recovered from the ruins. The group realized the spirits haunting them weren't just Eliza's. They were the countless victims of the Ravenwoods. "They're all trapped there," Sarah whispered, "and they want us to set them free." With no other choice, they returned to the manor one last time. As they entered, the air felt heavier, the whispers louder. This time, the house seemed alive, its walls pulsing and creaking as if reacting to their presence. The group followed the clues in the old articles, eventually discovering a hidden staircase behind the library wall. It led to a dark, underground chamber filled with iron cages, shackles, and old, rusted tools. The smell of decay was overwhelming. In the center of the room was a massive stone altar covered in strange carvings. On it lay an old book, its pages filled with rituals and symbols. Emily picked it up and began flipping through the pages. "It's a binding ritual," she said. "The Ravenwoods didn't just kill these people. They bound their souls to the house. That's why they can't leave." As Emily read aloud from the book, the temperature in the room dropped sharply. Shadows began to form, swirling around the group. The spirits of the victims appeared, their faces contorted with pain and anger. Suddenly, a booming voice echoed through the chamber. "You dare to defy the Ravenwoods." It was the spirit of Lord Ravenwood himself, a towering figure wreathed in darkness. "You've tormented them long enough," Sarah shouted. "We're here to end this." The spirits of the victims began to rise, their forms glowing faintly as if empowered by the group's defiance. Together, the friends chanted the words from the book, the room shaking violently as the ritual progressed. Lord Ravenwood howled in fury, his form dissipating as the victim spirits overwhelmed him. One by one, the spirits began to fade, their faces now peaceful. When the ritual ended, the house was silent. The oppressive atmosphere was gone, replaced by an eerie calm. The group left the manor, watching as it began to collapse in on itself, consumed by the weight of its dark past. Though they had freed the spirits, the group knew they would never be the same. The horrors they had witnessed left scars that would never heal. And as they walked away from the ruins, they couldn't shake the feeling that someone, was still watching them. Even though the group had destroyed Ravenwood Manor, their ordeal was far from over. Each of them began to experience strange, unexplainable events, as if the curse had followed them back into their lives. Sarah's nightmare. Sarah was the first to notice something was wrong. A week after the manor's collapse, she began hearing faint whispers at night. They were coming from her closet. She tried to ignore them, convincing herself it was her imagination. But one night, the whispers turned into a chilling voice that called her name. "Sarah, you left us." Terrified, she opened the closet, expecting to find nothing. Instead, she found a small, burnt piece of wood, part of the altar from the underground chamber. She knew she hadn't brought it home. Mark's shadow, Mark, started seeing a shadowy figure in his peripheral vision. At first, he thought it was just a trick of the light, but the figure began appearing more frequently, always standing at the edge of his vision. One night, he woke up to find the figure standing at the foot of his bed. It didn't move, didn't speak. It just stood there, staring at him with hollow eyes. When Mark turned on the light, it vanished, but the fear lingered. Emily's reflection. Emily's trouble began with her bathroom mirror. Whenever she looked into it, she saw faces staring back at her. Faces she recognized as the victims from Ravenwood Manor. They didn't move or speak, but their eyes followed her every move. One night, she covered the mirror with a towel, hoping to block them out. But when she woke up, the towel was gone, and the words, "Help us," were scrawled across the glass in what looked like blood. Jason's visions, Jason's dreams became unbearable. Every night he saw the manor as it once was, filled with the laughter of the Ravenwood family and the cries of their victims. He always found himself in the underground chamber, standing before the altar. In one dream, Lord Ravenwood appeared, his face twisted in anger. "You think you've won?" he hissed. "This is far from over." Jason woke up screaming, his body drenched in sweat, a new mystery. The group reconvened, desperate to make sense of what was happening. "I thought destroying the manor would end this," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "It didn't," Mark replied. "The curse isn't tied to the house, it's tied to us now." Emily placed the burnt piece of wood Sarah had found on the table. "This came from the altar. I think it's the key. We didn't destroy the ritual completely. We only released some of the spirits." Jason nodded. "The others are still trapped. And Lord Ravenwood, he's still out there, holding on to whatever power he has left." They realized they had to finish what they started. Using the symbols and rituals from the book Emily had found, they began researching ways to break the curse once and for all. Their search led them to an old priest named Father Grayson, who had studied the occult and knew of the Ravenwood family's dark history. A final confrontation. Father Grayson explained that the only way to destroy the curse was to confront Lord Ravenwood's spirit directly and sever his connection to the mortal world. To do this, they needed to return to the ruins of Ravenwood Manor and perform a final ritual at the site of the underground chamber. "This won't be easy," Father Grayson warned. "He'll fight to protect his power. You'll be risking your lives." But the group knew they had no choice. The curse was already consuming them, and it would only get worse if they didn't act. The return to Ravenwood. On a moonless night, they returned to the site of the manor's ruins. The air was thick with tension, and the forest around them seemed unnaturally quiet. As they began the ritual, the ground trembled, and the shadows around them came alive. Lord Ravenwood's spirit emerged, towering and monstrous, his face twisted with rage. "You dare defy me again?" he roared, his voice shaking the earth. The group stood their ground, chanting the incantation Father Grayson had given them. The shadows attacked, but the spirits of the victims began to appear, fighting back against their tormentor. The battle was fierce, but as the final words of the ritual were spoken, a blinding light engulfed the ruins. Lord Ravenwood let out a deafening scream as his spirit was torn apart and the shadows dissolved into nothingness. The aftermath. When the light faded, the group found themselves alone in the ruins. The oppressive feeling was gone, replaced by an overwhelming sense of peace. They knew the curse had been lifted, and the spirits of the victims were finally free. Though they had won, the experience left them forever changed. They had confronted pure evil and survived, but the memories would haunt them for the rest of their lives. As they walked away from the ruins for the last time, the first rays of dawn broke through the trees, signaling a new beginning. But deep in the forest, a faint whisper lingered, as if reminding them that some secrets are never truly buried. The end.